Welcome, friends. You got gourd, you're hurting hippie. It is Hippie News Network, episode number 121. That's 121 times I've brought some kind of news about cannabis to you. Today I thought I'd start because it's a slow cannabis news couple of weeks. It's been 14 days since I brought episode 120 to you. And you'd think in 14 days I'd have quite a few stories to cover, but I really don't. I had to go searching for them this time. But there's still some good stories. In the meanwhile, I thought I'd share a little something with you. Have a beautiful look at that. That is, let's get it focused on it. There we go. That is chocolate kush from mmjtotalhealthcare.ca. MMJ is my apothecary. Is it yours? If you aren't in Canada, I guess it isn't. Oh, what a beautiful smell. This stuff tastes like coffee. It tastes like a creamed coffee, and although I don't put cream in my coffee, I only don't because it's bad for my body. I love cream in coffee. And let's have a little look right there. That's it at 20 times zoom, only 20 times zoom, and look at the, let's play with that a bit before we get to the news. Look at the beauty of that plant. It's all trichomes. This is a tiny piece taken off the nose of taken off the butt of this. Just a piece taken off the butt. So if it doesn't look fully mature yet, that's only because it's the bottom of the, it's very mature. But let's go 200 times. I love doing this. Look at those trichomes. Let's go full screen because that's gorgeous. You don't need my face. Look at those trichomes. Those are long, spindly, couple of different kinds of trichomes. And there's a couple of different pieces of medicine inside that. Isn't that absolutely beautiful? It's a forest of trichomes. You can't get through it. It's just gorgeous. So, now that I've titillated your senses, oh, I hope I don't get blocked for that, let's move on to the stories and let's cheers a beautiful, beautiful medicine. Chocolate kush is great. I'm looking for my lighter. Chocolate kush is great for so many things. It's a heavy indica, really good for sleep. Boy, it improves my appetite. Probably too much. That's why the face is getting chubby. I'll change that. Spring's coming. Cheers, everybody. What are you toking? Let me know below. And this is one of the few times that I smoke the green. I usually squish it into rosin and vaporize. Not much into getting carcinogens in my lung, even though the other properties of cannabis clean that up. Why put a mess in the first place? What a beautiful flavor. We're going to cheers some of these stories with that very thing. Now, before I go to the first story, I want to tell you, a lot of people have sent me links about Jeff Sessions. One even told me that I'm not scared enough. I'm not scared at all of Jeff Sessions. And I just want to bring to you, Google Jeff Sessions, Mr. Magoo. Trump has recently coined a nickname for him, and it fits. It shows how much respect he has in his own cabinet, not Trump's respect, but the respect he gains from his own boss. Never mind us. Why should we pay him any attention when his own boss calls him Mr. Magoo? So let us move on to the stories of this week, and the first few are Canadian. This one right at home. Number of Alberta doctors prescribing marijuana jumps 50% in just 4 months. A Calgary physician says doctors are increasingly open to the idea of prescribing medical marijuana, a form of treatment that has divided the medical community. it's interesting. There's a few of these things that are really interesting, but I took this story and I sent it to my doctor, who is I wouldn't say a proponent. He's not against it, and he does see that it has indeed value for a lot of people. So much so that he's had a couple of patients that he has said, Gord, who prescribes for you? I may have a few people. I'll make that as an alternative for them. So that's from a guy who 8 years ago, when I asked about medical marijuana, said you'd have to be dying. Otherwise, I can't get it for you. So things have really changed. And right here, Dr. Laurie Montgomery, a Calgary-based chronic pain physician, says almost every single patient I have has asked about it. I do think there are situations when the patient has tried everything else, nothing else works, and they're low risk in terms of things we put people at risk of adverse effects of cannabis. Then it's worth a try. She says more doctors are willing to discuss it, that the typical in Alberta is there's a cannabis doctor who prescribes to hundreds, but what was not typical in Alberta was doctors who are not cannabis doctors actually prescribing to the few patients that they see that it fits. This is where it has increased. And why has it increased there? Because of the looming change in legalities. It used to be a doctor would be prescribing a highly controlled substance, so they really were shy at doing it and said, go to a cannabis doctor who's insured for that. Now they're seeing that it's, although a controlled substance, it is going to soon be legal in its many forms without a prescription. So people will get it anyways, but why not? Doctors are digging in, they're starting to learn, and they're going to start sharing that with their medical patients, because it is different when you're taking it medically than when you're taking it just for fun. If I were just taking it for fun, I probably would only maybe on Saturdays and Sundays take it in the morning, or maybe only Saturday. And most of the time you wouldn't take it till evening, have a couple of tokes, that's fun. When you're taking it consistently and on a consistent basis, it reacts much differently. You build tolerance to the high. I barely ever get high anymore. I don't have that fun that comes with recreational and once in a while use. Sporadic use, you always get the high. If you're using it every single day, you're not getting high, you're getting pain relief. And that's what people are starting to realize. This is a great story, but I did want to share one more piece of this story. As with every story, there's a piece of stigma attached. So I'll read this. CMA, Canadian Medical Association, urges a cautious approach. The Canadian Medical Association raised warning flags about the practice of prescribing medical marijuana years ago and continued to urge caution. Quoting, there's a constellation of chemicals here that we don't really know exactly what it is and what it does and how it interacts with other diseases. So it's a bit of a problem to prescribe it, and that is sad. That is sad that the Canadian Medical Association states categorically that there's a constellation of chemicals that we don't really know exactly what it is, what it does, and how it interacts with other medicines. Maybe they don't know how it interacts with other medicines because they haven't worked that field. But if they don't know what the chemicals are and what they do, then they have been sleeping. They have been denying their patients rights to be presented with a plethora of solutions and let the patient choose. If they don't know what chemicals are in cannabis, and I do, and I haven't spent a day in a medical school, then shame on them. Shame on them. Learn. I said that once to a student doctor. I go to a clinic. I go to a teaching clinic. I love the clinic. I really do. So you always get a student doctor talking to you first, as if they're your doctor. They go through the entire checkup and then they leave. It's all watched on cameras, and then they go talk to the doctor and tell them what they think. Then the doctor comes in and does his bit. The real doctor, the experienced doctor, the professor, comes in with the doctor and then shows what they've done right, what they've done wrong, how they can improve, that kind of thing. And I had one telling me, well, I'm looking at your chart here and I don't think there's much I can do because you refuse to take medicine for your conditions. You have some pretty serious conditions and you're taking no medicine. And I said, pardon me? It says, right? I know it says on my file, I take medical cannabis. She says, yeah, but I meant modern medicine. And I thought, oh my goodness. And I says, well, why can't we talk about it? Well, I haven't studied it. I don't know anything about it. And I says, therein lies the rub. You're a doctor. You need to know about it. It's been a part of the Canadian medical program since the 80s. Get with it. So let's move on. That story's below. There's some good stuff. There's some stigma. You always got to read things with a grain of salt. Take from it what you will. Leave behind what you won't. And somewhere in the middle we find peace. The next story, really good story too, also Canadian. Will cannabis, in fact also local, Alberta, will cannabis become an economic catalyst in Alberta? Excuse me. Alberta, BC to some degree, and Saskatchewan to a more degree, have done the right thing. They've said, let's let private enterprise thrive and do with what they will under regulations in this new industry. And yes, Alberta's going to thrive. Number of new businesses will improve. And this is a really nice talk because they talk with Cassandra Farrington from Denver, a marijuana media mogul who covers the scene in Colorado. And this is some of the things that she said. One of the most striking things is how normal it has become. I'm paraphrasing there. You can't really tell the difference of pre-recreational and post-recreational cannabis. You drive past a dispensary and it's like driving past a liquor store. She's saying in Colorado, it quickly became a norm. Not something glaring, oh my God, we're living in a new world where drugs are available. No, it's just another store that presents to adults an alternative to the stress of the day, a relief from the stress of the day, or however it might be used recreationally or medically. Prior to her appearance on CBC Radio, Farrington was part of a forum held by the Calgary Chamber of Commerce that focused on the economic impact. Farrington was a number of speakers at the forum, along with former Calgary Stampeders owner Ted Hellard. In her interview with the Homestretch, Farrington delivered what was that the cannabis industry had a dynamic impact on Denver. Now I'm quoting this. The job creation piece of it has been huge, and it's not just among retailers and growers, but there is so much opportunity for innovation and business development all around this industry that it's fueling huge job growth down in the US, and I'm sure will do the same here in Canada. One of the biggest issues was figuring out the regulations. There were some things in place that they had to work through. What didn't work, what was working well, and what needed to be strengthened. And then managing those transitions. As she says, they find out that they need to maybe not control the level of THC, but report the level of THC. If you aren't controlling it, but reporting it, that changes your methods of growing. It changes your methods of distribution. So this was a really good thing, and I really like how my province, Alberta, has really dug into, let's find out the realities of this, because it's going to be a big industry, and it needs to be an industry that profits all Albertans. The better we can do in this industry that's going to boom across the world, the better we do internationally, the better we do for our people locally. It's a win-win. So for that, I love these kind of articles. I'm going to cheers again with the chocolate kush, which is really making me a real nice happy, but boy, my eyes are drooping. I'm tired already. Peace and cheers. That was a strong one. Sorry, folks, I had to take a break. Whoa, that was a strong one. On to the next story. Last Canadian story. Oh, excuse me. This story is kind of cool. It talks about how universities... Oh, boy, excuse me. Wish I could mute while I cough. It talks about how universities are going to have to change in Alberta, across Canada, when marijuana is legalized. Most universities have already areas in which their people can partake in alcohol, can smoke cigarettes, because cigarettes have become really constrained, as they should be, because they promote in health, not health, like cannabis. And they're going to have to make way for the recreational use by their adult students of this product. They have to live within the rights of Canadians. And all across Canada, it has basically been purported that the regulations will keep the smoking of cannabis or the partaking of cannabis to areas where smoking is already allowed. Then it's up to the owners to decide if you divide or how you provide. I like how I did that. It's a good story. Marijuana, of course, as it says, is no stranger to Canadian university campuses. Maclean's survey in 2017 suggested that a third of university students smoked it at least part-time, and 5% at least 3 or 4 times a week. I keep saying about these studies. Keep in mind, while these studies are being done in the US and in Canada, when they're asking people, polls about their usage, even those that will admit to using will admit to using less than they do. Though many who use part-time will not admit at all, because it's still in Canada recreationally illegal federally and provincially. It's only legal medically. In the US, it's illegal federally completely, yet some states have allowed it. So nobody's going to go on to an official record, especially nowadays when even things like Canada Revenue Agency checking out your social media to try and find people who are abusing their taxes. When you have that deep a dig into your data, you're careful what you say. So always take these studies, and if they say 1/3 admit to sometimes smoking it, half, probably half. That's not scientific, that's just logic. And this story is not a big one, but well, let me read this to you. But when a fresh academic year begins in September, cannabis will be as legal as alcohol. Ideally, universities would have the equivalent of a campus bar, but set up for cannabis, says Jenna Valerina, Valeriana, a strategic advisor for Canadian students for sensible drug. In a legal context, I think it would be important to have some kind of space or designated area where students could use cannabis, much like alcohol. But it would be a mistake to let pot and alcohol coexist in the same place. I am really glad that they say that, because they just don't work well together. They really don't work well together, and they have opposite effects on our psyche. Alcohol makes you feel like Superman. Pot just puts you more in touch with your true abilities and inabilities. We understand ourselves deeper. So I agree. Let's keep them separate. If people want to mix them at home, that's up to them, and I'd always suggest not. Next story is... This is a really good story. Big Pharma gets slammed by Philadelphia District Attorney and U.S. Senator. Big Pharma gets sued over opioids and takes a beating from a senator. This is a really good story. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York is calling out pharmaceutical companies for being against cannabis legalization. It's getting out there, and I've said that before. As this opioid crisis explodes, and the reality that so many of these people, if they had been prescribed marijuana, would be handling their chronic pain better and not be addicted or dead, that kind of logic just floats to the surface. It has to, especially with over half the U.S. states allowing medical marijuana. How do you not say, look, it's an alternative. Why aren't our doctors prescribing it? Case in point. Let me read from here. I really like this story. Case in point, Insys Therapeutics, a large pharmaceutical company that manufactures fentanyl and has been sued for faking cancer patient reports just to make money. Last year, Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich filed charges against them for fraudulent tactics. Insys lied to insurers, concealed key facts from doctors and patients, and paid doctors speaker fees in exchange for writing prescriptions, all in order to increase the sales of their fentanyl product Subsys without regard for the health and safety of patients, he said. Insys made hundreds of millions of dollars from its deceptive scheme, but also put countless patients in harm's way, exposing them to unacceptable and unnecessary risks of addiction. Insys also donated $500,000. Insys is this company, $500,000 in efforts to crush the cannabis legalization in Arizona. So not only are these companies out there and paying doctors to write more prescriptions and pushing, like we get mad at people on the street selling pot, and that really doesn't happen anymore. As pushers, this is the true pusher. This is a huge company making millions of dollars on the back of people being addicted. If they aren't addicted, they aren't buying it regularly, and they're not making their millions. Pot's not like that. So here, yay for Senator Gillibrand, yay for this other governor that they speak of, yay. We have to go after pharmaceutical companies, and they've got to stop paying for other people to fight an industry that is in competition with them. Well, I guess that's the competitive practice. What really needs to happen is get it out of Schedule 1 U.S., talk to your senators, talk to your governors, say, let's get it out of Schedule 1, let's get it legal federally so that they can compete properly with the pharmaceuticals. You're going to save lives. You're just going to save lives. So the last part that I bring to you, and I'm not going to read from it, I'm just going to attach it, is in case you are in Michigan, this is, you'll want to look at this. This is how you get your medical card in Michigan. I'll try to find things like that throughout, because people ask me, oh, how do I find a doctor in California? I can't help. But sometimes if I can put a story here and you can look back, you can find the help you need. So, friends, that's Hippie News number 121, 122 coming to you in a couple of weeks. I can't wait to bring it to you. You know, give me the stories. I'll cover them. I'll either cover them in my porch ponderings. I'll cover them on a ramble. I'll cover them on Hippie News. So share with me. I'll share with you. Peace and cheers, friends. Love and harmony.